Today we're going to get personal with our guest, Bill Syrcle. Hi, I'm Norman A. Hood, financial advisor and host of the Exit Plan Show. I interview America's top advisors like Bill Syrcle to help business owners like you enjoy more freedom, grow your company faster, and retire someday on your own terms. Bill's with Sinago in Macomb, Illinois. He has a master's in clinical psychology. He's a licensed clinical counselor and a family business consultant. And today we're going to talk to Bill about what he does, his career, that type of thing. So Bill, can you tell everyone what your career's been like up until now?
Okay. This is actually my second career. I farmed for about 12 years before I made the switch. I grew up on a small farm with a big family. We had about 160 acres, so there wasn't much to go around. So I always worked for somebody else. And I realized at one point that I could spend the rest of my life doing that, but didn't really want to. So I'm kind of independent. So I wanted to be able to pursue my own interests and have my own business, and so that's why I went into studied psychology. Enjoy people, and it's fascinating to learn about them and what makes them tick, and to help them make changes in their lives. So then I do own Sinago. It's a private practice. I have a couple other people that work with me. So I've been in psychology now professionally since 1999. So that's kind of a synopsis up to now.
Is anything in your past on the farm that kind of led you to psychology, or was what was the...
Well, I have done behavior modification with cattle.
Okay.
And sometimes it feels like working with people.
I'd say a lot.
There's nothing specific about the farming that led me into psychology. I've also been very active in my church and being around people and working with youth, and that probably had a bigger impact on me going into psychology, and just seeing their struggles as growing up, and a desire to help them. And I've also seen a lot of married couples that struggle, and divorces, and there's divorce in my family. So being able to help other people avoid those issues, it's probably what led me more into psychology.
Okay, interesting. So can you tell us what motivated you to get involved in exit planning? Because I know that's something you're starting to get pretty involved with.
I've seen a lot of farm families really struggle with that. The general pattern is that, a father is usually the leader of the family. He's the head of the farm, and he tells the son what to do. And then when he's ready to retire, he just expects that the son's going to take over and do it the way he did it. And that doesn't happen very often.
Right.
And so they really struggle with that transition on both ends. The leader, the father, trying to exit and step back and letting the son take a lead. Also, the son stepping up and having the confidence to make the decisions and to carry on that business. There's a lot of struggles in that. And then you throw in some of the family dynamics. What goes on in the family also happens in the business. And so those family dynamics surface, and people struggle with those also.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I know a lot of times people's backgrounds were different 50 years ago, so you grow up remembering something that happened 50 years ago, and so you kind of design your business plan around that. For example, farm owners who went through the Depression. My generation, we really don't know what that means, so our outlook on business might be different on worst case scenario anyway. So.
And that's what my father did. He grew up in the Depression, and at one point they had a fire, and they literally had nothing at one point. And so a lot of his decisions were based on the fear of losing what he had. And in doing that, then he didn't take the risks to gain more. And so that was a part of me growing up and the struggle of 9 kids on 160 acres.
Yeah.
It just doesn't go around.
There's some similarity in our two backgrounds in that way. So when you're working with farm families, how could you take your background and your interest in exit planning, and how could you help them develop an exit plan?
A lot of exit plans are about numbers. You got an accountant, you got an attorney, they know the taxes, the laws, all that stuff. Pulling insurance to cover, risks. My role is helping with the personal relationships and the individual's own identity and struggles and mental and emotional capacities, and about making those transitions. I can work with an individual. Say there's one person that is struggling with that identity of, going from the head of the family, the leader, to, stepping back and just, kind of being the follower and following whatever the child wants to do, and losing that role. I can help that person work through those struggles. There's often some grief that goes through that. There's some loss. That loss of a role, sometimes the loss of the identity, sometimes the loss of the farm in their minds. I can also work with the younger person that's coming in and helping them develop their confidence and decision making, finding what their strengths and weaknesses are, helping them overcome those weaknesses and use those strengths to make the transition. The other way is to work with the relationships, pulling them both in, and that might include extended families, spouses or other children that might be on the fringes, and helping work through those dynamics and struggles and communication and conflicts and resolve all that so that they can make those decisions that work best for them.
Okay. Good. I can say that I've been working with small business owners, mostly family-owned, for the last 40 years. And, the insurance is pretty black and white. The taxes are pretty black and white. The legal issues are pretty black and white. What your farm's
psychological
worth.
Or not. They are very gray, and they are very difficult to navigate.
And the problem is that people like me who are trained in most of the other disciplines aren't trained in the psychological aspect. And I would say that more exit plans go wrong because of that, because there's no communication, and in a way an exit planner feels handcuffed because there's a problem but you don't know how to help. And I would say to any business owner that is looking at an exit plan, if there are issues that are holding you back, this is probably the most important thing you can do, is find somebody that's trained in this area, a family business consultant. That's something you need to work on first, before you look at the numbers and before you look at the rest of everything else, because if you don't work this out, I don't think the numbers make much difference.
I had a client not too long ago. The business was struggling, and they were trying to decide what to do with the business. We went through this 3 different times, and each time the conclusion was to close the business. That's what the numbers said, but the person couldn't do it. They had this emotional attachment to it, and they had their dreams were put into it, and so the first 2 times they would not make that decision. And it just kept going downhill and downhill, and finally they just lost so much that they didn't have any choice. They had to close the business. And then that person, struggled with some depression after that, from losing more so the dreams of it, I think, than actually losing the business. Okay. And so those emotional components can outweigh any numbers that people put together.
Okay. Well, I think we've covered that topic pretty well. I really appreciate your help. And if you're interested in talking to Bill about his services, if you own a family business, you're considering an exit plan, or just want to resolve some relationships, you can contact Bill. His information is on our website. And when you're finished, please visit our website, look at the show notes below, and leave your comments. And thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next time.